Travels in the South, so he's on his road now, East Texas. When I left the Alabama Coushatta people, it was early morning. They had treated me kindly, given me food, spoken me words of welcome, and thanked me. I touched them, their hands, and promised I would be back. When I passed by the Huntsville State Pen, I told the Indian prisoners what the people said and thanked them and felt very humble. The sun was rising then. When I got to Dallas, I did not want to be there. I went to see the BIA relocation man. He told me, I don't know how many Indians there are in Dallas. They come every week. I talked with Ray, a Navajo. He didn't have a job, was looking, and he was a welder. I saw an Apache woman crying for her lost life. When it was evening of the next day, I stopped at a lake called Caddo. I asked the park ranger, who was Caddo? And he said it used to be some Indian tribe. I met two black women fishing at the lake. I sat by them. They were good to be with. They were about 70 years old and laughed, and for the first and only time in my life, I cut a terrapin's head off because, as the women said, they won't let go until sundown. When it was after sundown in East Texas, I prayed for strength, and the Caddo, and the black women, and my young son at home, and Dallas, and when it would be morning, the sun. The Creek Nation east of the Mississippi. Once in a story I wrote that Indians are everywhere. Goddamn right. In Pensacola, Florida, some hot dog stand operator told me about Chief McGee. I'm looking for Indians, I said. I know Chief Alvin McGee, he said. I bought a hot dog and a beer. He lives near Atmore, Alabama. Cross the tracks, drive by the school over the freeway to Atlanta, about a mile. He lives at the second house on the right. I called from a payphone in Atmore. Mr. McGee told me to come on over. I found his home right away, and he came out when I stopped in his yard. He had a big smile on his face. I'd seen his face before in history books when they bothered to put creeks in them. He told me about Osceola. He was born in this country, Chief McGee said. He showed me his garden and fields. I have 70 acres, he said. We used to have our own school, but they took that away from us. There ain't much they don't try to take. We watched the news on TV. It was election time in Alabama. George Wallace against something. People kept coming over to his house, wanting the chief's support. Wallace is the one. Brewer is our man. They kept that up all night. The next morning the election was on, but I left right after breakfast. Chief Alvin McGee put his arms around me and blessed me. I remembered my grandfather, the mountains, the lands from where I came, and I thanked him for his home. Keep together. Please don't worry about Wallace. Don't worry. I was on that freeway to Atlanta when I heard about the killings at Kent State. I pulled off the road just past a sign which read, "No stopping except in case of emergency," and hugged a tree. This is about, 1970. Crossing the Georgia border into Florida. I worried about my hair, kept my car locked. They'd look at me, mean, white, nervous, their lips moving, making wordless gestures. My hair is past my ears. My grandfather wore it like that. He used to wear a hat, a gray one with grease stains on it. The people called him Tall One because he was tall for an Akama. I had a hard time in Atlanta. I thought it was because I did not have a suit and tie. I had to stay at the Dinkler Plaza, a classy joint for an Indian meeting. The desk clerk didn't believe it when I walked up, requested a room, a towel rolled up under my arm, a couple of books, and my black bag of poems. I had to tell him who I really wasn't. He charged me $20 for a room, and I figured I'm sure glad that I'm not a black man, and I was sure happy to leave Atlanta. A few miles from the Florida line, I picked up some flowers beside the highway, put them with the sage I got in Arizona. After the Florida line, I went to a state park, paid $2.50, and the park ranger told me, this place is noted for the Indians that don't live here anymore. He didn't know who they used to be. When I got to my camping site and lay on the ground, a squirrel came by and looked at me. I moved my eyes. He moved his head. Brother, I said. A red bird came off. Brother, how are you? I asked. I took some bread, white and kind of stale, and scattered some crumbs before them. They didn't take the crumbs, and I didn't blame them. talks about how he first went away to school, the Indian school in Santa Fe. How his father took him to school, and it's his first time he's leaving home. Goes into the chapel, goes into another school, everything opens up, he passes out. His father takes him outside, realizes he's entrusting his son not to his usual tribal way of growing up, the education of the school in Santa Fe, which proves to be a good school. This is a piece called The Poems I've Lost. And true to form, sometimes Simon Ortiz is the drunken Indian. And a lot of his poems have to do with the fact that he gets loose and loses his poems. The Poems I've Lost. She said to take the L train to... I knew where I left them, on the floor of her apartment with 5 blocks on 13th Street, somewhere else, city, USA. I don't think I'll ever go back. A young couple picked me up east miles out of Asheville. Had just started a poem, too, and we stopped and smoked at a roadside table at the edge of the June tobacco fields. I lost them somewhere between there and the Atlantic Ocean. I wrote Duffy a long, rambling letter, called it a poem from Nashville because I got lonesome for sunsets in Colorado springtime, and then dropped the letter in the mailbox. I wonder if it ever found her in Juneau, Alaska. The last thing I remember was leaning into the roots of a pinon tree. It wasn't the horse that had thrown me. It wasn't McAllister either, who owned the horse. It was all that damn beer we had been drinking all afternoon. I got a letter from St. Paul, Minnesota, inviting me up there to read poems. I fell off the plane in Denver, lost my ticket and most of my poems, but managed to hold on enough to a few remaining things. Memories, I guess they are, crowd me because of all the signals I missed, the poems that keep coming back in pieces. Fragments remain with me, of course. I touch the bare skeletons, smell the old things, and see new visages pass. Many, many times. Those are enough. This is a piece called Hunger in New York City. Kind of imagine this guy inside New York City. Hunger crawls into you from somewhere out of your muscles, or the concrete, or the land, or the wind pushing you. It comes to you asking for food, words, wisdom, young memories of places you ate at, drank cold spring water, or held somebody's hand, or home of the gentle, slow dances, the songs, the strong gods, the world you know.